I the asshole for refusing to participate in my boyfriend's family's bizarre orange tradition? My boyfriend and I have been together for a while now, but I hadn't met his family until a week ago when they invited us to stay at their house. I was very excited to meet his parents for the first time, and they were super sweet when I got there. Both of them are lovely people, and we got along really well. They gave us free rein to do whatever, but the one thing they insisted on was that we join them for their tradition of eating oranges as a family on Saturday morning. They grow their own oranges and have been doing this since my boyfriend was a kid, so he was especially thrilled to share the tradition with me as a rite of passage. So the morning came and his mom brought in some fresh oranges from the garden. We sat at the table and I was getting ready to peel my orange when I saw my boyfriend's mom bite into her orange like it was an apple, with the peel still on. I was so stunned when I saw my boyfriend and his dad do the same thing with their oranges, as if it were totally normal. I guess they noticed my shock because they asked me why I wasn't eating. So I started to peel my orange, but then his mom told me to stop, that I was eating it wrong, and had to bite into it with the skin to get the full experience. I politely told her that I like to peel my oranges, and I'm sure they taste just as great either way, but she kept insisting that I had to bite into the orange for tradition. After saying multiple times that I'd rather peel it and the family, including my boyfriend, pushing back, I put the orange back on the table and said, though I appreciate the gesture, I personally feel uncomfortable eating oranges that way, and I'd rather not participate. Things were a little tense after that, and we left the next day. When we got home, my boyfriend chewed me out for being rude and embarrassing him and his family. He said I should have just eaten the orange the right way, since his parents were gracious to let me stay with them. I can see his point, and I apologize for causing any hurt. I really do like his family, and they are great people, but I do stand by my decision to opt out of the orange tradition. He feels I could have compromised, and I feel I should be able to eat things how I want. It's a silly squabble in the grand scheme of things, but my boyfriend and I are really at odds about who's in the wrong and would love an outsider's opinion. Am I the asshole?
That's really fucking weird. I don't know why they would think that. It literally has a peel on it. Like, you're supposed to peel it. It's like eating a fucking banana.
I'm so confused. So there are some edits. Some people have been asking what kind of oranges, whether they're actually oranges. All I can say is that I was told they were oranges, and they looked like typical oranges with thick skin. And then here's a photo of the tree in their backyard from a few years back.
Yeah, those are definitely oranges.
Am I wrong for not attending my sister's wedding because my husband is not invited? Let me start by saying this. I do understand my husband's behavior is inappropriate, but like all of us, he's not perfect, and I took vows with him to stand by him and accept him as a whole person, including his flaws. Overall, he's a good husband and I love him despite this one issue. One issue could be something very big too. So, my husband has a kink for urinating on himself in public. What the fudge? Ew! I think it's the humiliation aspect that gets him all. So sometimes, not every time we get together with my family, he will pee his pants. But overall, it's not really that disruptive. He just stands up and says something like, "Oh no, I peed myself." Then he goes to the bathroom and changes. I always bring a change of pants and underwear for him in case this happens. And when he gets back, we just move on and don't talk about it. Of course, we don't want people to know my husband is doing this for a kink. So we've told my family he has a medical condition that causes him to not have full control of his bladder. I told him that the reason he doesn't wear adult diapers is that he's ashamed of needing diapers at his age. So he's basically in denial that he needs them and refuses to wear them. Well, now my sister is getting married and she says my husband can't come because she doesn't want him disrupting my wedding by peeing his pants. I told her it was unfair to exclude him over a medical condition he can't help, which is true as far as she knows, but she said it's his own choice to refuse to wear adult diapers, so it is his fault. I told her it's her wedding and she can invite who she wants, but if my husband isn't invited, I'm not coming. He loves my family and I know it really hurts him to be excluded from the wedding just because of a kink he can't help having. He's been crying and saying he feels disgusting for having this kink, but that he can't control himself and now my family doesn't want him around. I know it would really hurt him if I just left him home and went to the wedding by myself. He told me it's my choice to go if I want and that he won't be mad, but I know he'd be really sad if I went. I love my sister and family, but my husband is my life partner, so he's always my number one priority above anyone else. And I believe I should stand by him and support him rather than choosing my family over him. So I told my sister I won't make it to the wedding, and now she's extremely angry with me, saying I'm a bad sister because I won't be there to support her. She's marrying a woman, so she also said it makes me look like I'm homophobic if I don't show up to support their union. I told her I'd love to come if my husband is invited, but she said she can't stand the thought of him disrupting the ceremony or reception by peeing his pants and announcing it. I told her how much it hurts my husband that he's excluded, but she doesn't care. I do feel bad that it hurts her that I won't be there, but he's my husband.
Time about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 8th grade, and we're gonna call my best friend Ashley. Ashley was really nice at first, she always had my back when I needed her, but then out of nowhere she started being super rude to me. She turned into one of those pick-me girls that would always make fun of you in front of other guys, talk crap about you to the guy that you liked. Well, the one day I hear her talking shit about me whenever we were in class, and everybody could hear her. She was literally on the whole other side of the class. And I asked her, hey, like, why were you talking about me? She was like, no, I was talking about a different girl. And I had a pretty unique name, so I was like, who else in the school could you have been talking about? But I just brushed it off. Well, then we were in algebra class and I heard her talking shit about me again. How I do my makeup so bad and I can never get a boyfriend, like I'm so ugly and all that stuff. Well, she thought that I wasn't mad at her, so she came up to me the one day and was like, OMG, I have a boyfriend. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, she would talk shit about me all the time, and I only confronted her that one time, so she thought that we were all good. So the one day before class starts, she runs up to me, she's like, oh my god, you'll never guess what? I have a boyfriend. She's like, he's so cute, he's really popular, he's on the football team. And I was like, girl, whatever, nobody cares. Until I'm sitting in my first class of the day, and I remember that she made out with my boyfriend last year. I forgave her, of course. But because karma was taking a little bit too long, I figured I had to do something about it myself. So my plan was to hook up with her boyfriend. Do I feel bad about it? Absolutely not. So I went to my school's football game, and guess who I saw? My best friend's boyfriend. She couldn't make it that night, she had something to do, so I had him all to myself. So I went up to him, I started flirting with him, and I was like, oh, you should break up with your girlfriend and date me instead. But then he was like, I thought you guys were best friends and I would never date you. Like for part 3 about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. So like I said, I went to the football game. She wasn't there because she had something else to do. I went up to him. I started flirting. I told him that he should break up with her and date me instead. And I also said that she was a bitch and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he was like, why would you say that about your best friend? And he was like, I would never date you. And I had a feeling this would happen. So I had photoshopped a picture of her and this guy that she sits next to in her lab class. And I showed it to him and I was like, see, she's cheating on you. So he was pissed off. He gave me his number. And the next day he came over to my house. We cuddled, watched movies, we kissed. After 3 months, Ashley found out. We hadn't talked to each other since then, but now I am 16 in 10th grade and still with her ex-boyfriend. Funny thing though, the picture that I photoshopped with her and that guy, she's literally dating him now. So you're welcome, I guess. But anyway, she still goes around talking shit on me. I mean, who can blame her? I did
Am I the asshole for refusing to let my niece swim in our pool with the other kids? Last week was my son's 12th birthday party. My family showed up to her house. I greeted my sister, who said she wasn't planning on coming since my niece, 14, was on her period and didn't feel like going out, but thought this would cheer her up a bit. I welcomed them, and they sat in the living room to eat. I was watching the kids swim when my sister and my niece approached the pool. My niece was in her swimsuit, ready to jump in with the other kids. I stopped them and asked my sister if she was really going to let my niece into the pool while on her period. She said it was fine, really, and that she took necessary precautions. I don't know what that meant as a guy, but still, I knew enough about periods to realize things could get messy. I said sorry, but I can't let my niece into the pool with the other kids in fear of any accidents. She angrily said my boys literally pee in the pool while we were talking, so accidents my ass. I just politely told her I was sorry, but it's different when dealing with blood than with urine, which is way too common in pools, by the way. Again, I said I wasn't going to allow any accidents on my son's birthday and suggested other activities for my niece. My sister blew up, calling me a raging, insensitive asshole, then, literally, and out of the blue, told my niece to get dressed because they were leaving. My parents then asked what was going on, and my sister told them I selfishly and meanly told her daughter off for wanting to swim in the pool with the other kids, just because she was on her period, and then she left. Mom gave me a look and shamed me up and down for how I treated my niece and sister. I said I didn't tell them to leave, just didn't agree on letting my niece use the pool when she's on her period, especially since I've asked my sister if she's done it before, and she said no. I honestly don't want to have to deal with cleaning up a bloody pool for the sake of what? Family? I just felt it was inappropriate, and besides, it's not like she's banned from the pool for good. Mom said I was still in the wrong, no matter how hard I tried to spin shit. My wife said I didn't overreact, but at least I could have been nicer about it. Was I the asshole in this situation?
Yeah, you were the asshole. You have only boys. They definitely pissed in that pool. But the little boys are not sharks. They're not going to smell one hit of blood and be like, all right, we're going to swim towards the niece. This man has no idea how women's body works, and there are 3 generations of women being like, you sound insane, and he's like, I'm not insane.
Am I wrong for threatening to cut my parents off financially to stop my brother from proposing at my wedding? I, 27 male. I'll start this off by saying my wedding is scheduled for April because my fiance, 25 female, has always dreamed of a spring wedding. And I really like the idea too. I have an older brother though, 30 male, and last Saturday I was called over to my parents' house to talk about something, but they refused to tell me what it was until I got there. They even sat me down with my brother and told me that my brother wants to use my wedding as a perfect day for him to propose to his girlfriend. I hate stuff like that. I get so anxious. I'm like, just tell me now so I don't shit my pants. I was instantly mad and told them absolutely not, but they ganged up on me. I ended up so enraged to the point that I, one man, somehow backed all 3 of them into a corner. I told them that if they want to do this, they'll not only be uninvited, but I'll also cut off the financial support I've been giving monthly since they paid to have my golden child brother go through college by taking out a second mortgage. I landed a decently high-paying job and have been sending $500 to my parents monthly to help ease their mortgage. And I didn't ask for a stake in the ownership of their house either. It was entirely goodwill and I can cut it off anytime. I left without speaking anything more to them, but my brother came to my home the next day to yell at me, saying that I ruined his big chance because now our parents are siding with me and say they'll evict him if he tries to propose at my wedding. He said I was financially blackmailing our parents and that he just wanted a good chance to propose because he was afraid his girlfriend might leave him soon. It's like putting a band-aid on a gashing wound. Like, that's not, the solution is not marriage. And if he tries to propose at my wedding, I will have him thrown out. That's not a maybe, but a definite. I said that was his problem, not mine, because my wedding day is not about him, and I doubt his girlfriend would appreciate her proposal followed up and being tossed out by a bouncer. Honestly, people, I don't think any girl really likes getting proposed to at weddings. Like, I don't know why guys think of this idea. It's so lazy. He yelled a few choice words at me, then went crying to our only surviving grandparent, our maternal grandmother, and she called to try and read me over the phone. No surprise, my brother heavily embellished the version of the story he told her, but she still sided with him after I gave her the real story. She tried to hold her ground, but the verbal backlash I ended up giving her left her crying. Dude, it's like, I'm sorry, you made your grandma cry. That got back to my parents, who are now pissed at me for taking things this far. No, you didn't, your brother did. But I told them that I only went that far because I had to when they were all trying to get me to let my brother use my wedding as a springboard for a proposal. They ended up agreeing with me, but still stated they feel like I'm crass. And my brother showed up at my home again to scream at me that I'm an asshole, and I hope I'm happy with myself for not allowing him the opportunity. I thought I was entirely in the right at first, but maybe I really did take it too far with my brother. So, am I the asshole for everything I did and said to my brother and everyone else?
Is it wrong for my husband to demand sexy time even though I don't want to? Disclaimers is not my story time instead of me on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 6 months. Unfortunately, our marriage was arranged by our families, and so far I have not been able to fall in love with him. I come from a very strict religion. My family and my husband's family believe that I should obey him, and it's been really hard for me to adjust to this. Before getting married, I had more freedom, but now I'm mostly home all day waiting for my husband to come home. I cook all of his meals and serve him while he's eating, and even if I'm not eating, he expects me to be sitting there with him. My husband is a very rich man, so he lets me go shopping whenever I want. But that's something I can't even do by myself. He always sends someone with me to go shopping, so I take advantage and buy really expensive designer things. Sometimes I spend $5,000 on a shopping day. This really never seems to bother him. Another thing I don't really like is that he rarely ever speaks to me. We have small talk every now and then, but we don't talk about important things, especially before we got married. We'd only seen each other a few times. I thought we'd have a really good relationship and be friends, but no. Sometimes I'll ask him what his day is like, and he just says it was fine. Other times I try to talk to him about his job, but he never really gives me a full answer. So honestly, I don't even know what he does. But my biggest problem with him is something else. He demands, you know what, sexy time. And I never really want to. I'm not in love with him and I'm not really attracted to him. On our wedding night, my family really pressured me into doing it. And it was horrible. And now whenever he wants it, I defend myself and it turns into a big fight. He even called my parents to complain. Part 2 is, is it wrong that my husband demands sexy time even though I don't want to? Disclaimers is not my story time instead of me on Instagram. That's when he called my parents and complained to them that I wouldn't do it with him. He took me to my parents' house the following day. My dad was really angry with me and told me that I needed to obey my husband. I told him I never wanted to get married to begin with and that I didn't love him or was even attracted to him. My parents clearly didn't understand me. I went home and my husband basically coerced me into doing it. And it's not even like it's fun. He doesn't do anything to please me. It's all about him when we're doing it. One night he asked me to do it and I refused. He got so angry he told me that he didn't need to ask for my permission. I basically punched him in the face and since then he hasn't touched me. But then I felt so responsible and I actually apologized. even though I was just defending myself. Everything's back to the way it was. I just have to do whatever he wants. All our friends think that we're incredibly happy. I couldn't take it anymore, so I opened up to one of my best friends. I told her everything that was going on, and she told me that I should just leave my husband. But with my religion and my family, it would be really hard to do that. Then she told me that I should just take on a lover. And the idea kind of stuck in my head. Let me backtrack a little. When I was in college, I had met somebody, but nothing ever happened because I knew my parents wouldn't accept him. I reached out to him on Facebook and asked him how he was, and he happened to be arriving to my city soon. I asked him if he wanted to meet up, and he said yes. And what happens next is crazy. When we saw each other, we instantly fell in love. Part 3 is up. Is it wrong for my husband to demand sexy time even though I don't want to? Disclaimers, no, my story time is that I mean Instagram. When I saw my old friend, it was like love at first sight. I could tell he was so happy to see me, and we talked for hours. And the only reason I was able to go was because I told my husband that I was going to hang out with my best friend. So my best friend wasn't actually even with me. After that, my friend, let's call him Rob. Rob and I hung out a few more times, and eventually I opened up to him about what was happening with my husband. I explained to him I had an arranged marriage and that I wasn't in love with my husband. He also told me that I should divorce my husband, but then he told me why. He said that since college he's always had feelings for me. That means he's had feelings for me for 3 years. Well, long story short, he's my lover now, and nobody knows. Only my best friend. We see each other 3 times a week. I always go when my husband's at work, and I tell him that I'm going to be with my best friend. And Rob and I meet at his place, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. I know that this is totally wrong, but I'm finally living. Of course, my husband still demands you know what, but I'm able to bear it now because I know I have someone else who actually loves me. I know this can't last forever though. I wish to just fall in love with my husband, but it's not that easy. He's always so demanding, and he doesn't understand that his behavior is not normal. And I barely speak to my parents now. I've only been seeing Rob for a month, but he's got to go back home eventually. What should I do?
Story time about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So a little background information. I was 14 and in 8th grade, and my best friends and I were having a sleepover. And right before we had went to sleep, we were all talking about this one TikTok trend that was going around. It's like this trend where girls would go and put wax on their boyfriends while they were sleeping and then take it off. Well, I didn't think anything of it, so that night I went to sleep. I should have knew this was gonna happen because I'm always the butt of the joke whenever it comes to our friend group. Like, I'm always the one getting picked on. Like, there was this one thing that my friend Ashley saw online. It was like, if you put white nail polish on your teeth, it would make your teeth whiter. So who did they decide to try it out on? Yup, me. And yes, I could have said no, but these were my best friends. I didn't think that they would intentionally hurt me. Anyway, so like I said, I go to sleep and all of a sudden I wake up in the middle of the night to something very, very, very hot on my face. I open my eyes and all of my friends are standing above me with their flashlights on. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow while I was asleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, went to sleep, didn't think anything was gonna happen, and then I wake up and all of them are standing above me with their flashlights on. And then I realized that Ashley has a stick in her hand. Once I realized that there was wax on the other end of the stick, I started screaming. So then Kelsey decides to cover my mouth. She's like, shh, it's not that bad, I promise, like, don't worry. I get up real quick, I run to the bathroom, and there's like this pink transparent wax on my eyebrow. It was about 3 a.m. and we're all sitting there trying to find ways to get this wax off of my fucking eyebrow. Well, then Amber goes, I'm tired of this, grabs it and rips it off my forehead. So I'm crying at this point. Like, I'm in 8th grade, I'm about to have my glow up, and y'all gotta ruin it with taking my eyebrow off. So nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night because they thought that I was gonna do something to them. So I acted all cool. I was like, no, it's fine, I can just draw it on. When in reality, I was going to cut this bitch's hair. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how my best friend waxed off my eyebrow in my sleep, so I cut her hair. So like I said, nobody went to sleep for the rest of the night. I acted like it was okay because I was plotting in my head that I was going to cut one of their fucking ponytails off. So I go over to their house next week, and every single day that week they were telling me how good my drawn-on eyebrow looked. It didn't actually look good, and none of my hairs were growing back. So around 12 o'clock, all of us are ready to go to bed. I'm laying down, pretending that I'm sleeping, and they think I'm sleeping, so they're over there talking shit about me on her bed, Ashley's bed. I wasn't sure which one's eyebrow I should rip off because the one ripped off my eyebrow, but then the other one put the wax on my eyebrow. They were like, she's sleeping. I don't think she's gonna do anything. She doesn't even have the balls to do anything. So around 4 in the morning, everybody is dead asleep. I get up, and Ashley had her hair in a ponytail. So that was easy enough. I grabbed a pair of scissors out of my book bag, and I cut her hair off.
Story time about how my husband's trying to convince me to become an escort. Disclaimers, now my story time is that I mean Instagram. My husband and I have been married for almost 6 years. We did get separated for 2 years, so technically we've been together for around 4 years. We had separated during COVID mainly because he doesn't want to have kids, and I desperately want to have children. And yes, when we got married, we did talk about having kids, and he said he wasn't sure. But after we got married, he basically told me that he did not want to have kids, which is obviously something that I did not sign up for when I married him. I began to resent him a lot because I could have been with somebody else, someone who wanted to have kids. But instead, I spent years with him only to find out that he did not want to have kids. I ended up asking him for a break, and that was basically during COVID. So we were basically broken up for all of 2020. This is where I'm assuming he started getting his ideas. We finally got back together in 2021. I had gone on a couple of dates with some really terrible guys, and I basically thought to myself, well, you know, my husband's not like that, so I guess I should get back with him. As soon as we moved in together, he started talking about escorts. He told me one of his friends uses an escort service, and he thought it might be a good idea to start one. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my husband's trying to convince me to become an escort. Disclaimers not my story time instead of me on Instagram. After he told me he was thinking about starting his own escort agency, I completely lost it. First off, I didn't want my husband to be involved in that, and secondly, I just think it would bring so many problems. He told me that we should just think about it, and I asked him to show me numbers. You know, how much do people make? And he didn't know anything about it. He had done zero research. After that, we didn't speak about it for a few weeks. Not until he asked me what I thought about being an escort. At first, I was confused, like me being an escort, or what I thought about escorts being escorts. I told him escorts can do anything they want, as long as they're safe and happy. Then he said, well, we should look into you becoming an escort. I started to laugh and he's like, no, I'm serious. And that's when it hit me. This whole time he was trying to convince me to become an escort? His own wife? What does that say about us? What does that say about the relationship and how he feels about me? So I turned it around and told him that he should become an escort. Then he said, I'm not as good looking as you, so I wouldn't make enough money. That's when he confessed that he had signed me up to 2 different escort websites, and he had conversations with guys pretending to be me. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my husband's trying to get me to become an escort. That's when he confessed that he had already signed me up to several escort websites and that he had been having conversations with different men pretending to be me. Then he pulls out his phone and shows me all the conversations. Most of the men were trying to make me their sugar babies and were offering me upwards of $5,000 a month just to go on dates with them. The look in my husband's face was of excitement and happiness. I was mortified. I couldn't believe that my husband was even entertaining the idea. After he finishes showing me all of the messages between him and these other men, he tells me that we could be earning about $22,000 a month, and all I'd have to do is just go on dates with these guys. I started to cry and he told me that I was overreacting and that most women would kill to be in my place. I told him these men would expect much more than just going on dates, and he swears up and down that they won't. Now the thing is, we have had money trouble, so I see where he's coming from, but I just don't know. He's still trying to convince me, and he shows me messages from these guys every single day. Most of these men are in their 50s, and one of these guys was actually really attractive. The money sounds so good, but I don't know what to do. I feel like I would resent my husband eventually. I mean, what if I fall in love with one of them? What should I do?
Story time about how I got revenge on my 7th grade bully. When I was in 7th grade, there was this one boy that would not stop picking on me. He would pour all of my stuff out of my bag, cut my hair, push me in the hallways, spill my drinks and snacks, plus many other annoying and embarrassing things. One day, he decided he was going to pour a bucket of fruit punch on top of me. I was wearing an expensive, mostly white outfit. This was because it was picture day and I wanted to look nice. I ended up having to go take pictures with messed up hair and clothing, then got chewed out by my father when I got home. I was grounded for a month because my parents were strict and they didn't want to listen to my story. The next day, I was sitting in math class when my principal walked and sat down on a chair to supervise the class. My principal sat down his things and went into the hallway to talk to my teacher. I grabbed his computer and put it in my bag. Everyone was too busy with their groups to notice. The bell rang shortly after, and while everyone went to lunch, I went to my locker and opened the principal's computer. I quickly searched up different websites and then put the computer in my bully's locker. I knew the code because my locker is right next to his and he's always asking someone to help him open it. I rushed to the cafeteria and saw that my principal was still talking to my teacher, so he didn't know it was missing yet. Next period, everyone was getting questioned because the principal knew someone took his computer. After opening everyone's bag and finding nothing, he decided to search other areas, like the lockers. He went through everyone's locker until he found it in the boys' locker. After seeing what he looked up, him stealing it and him lying, he earned 3 days of ISS. After he was done, he told everyone that his parents grounded him for a year. Everyone made fun of him constantly until the end of 8th grade when they finally got over it. I think he somehow knew I did it because he started being way nicer to me and paid for all of the stuff that he damaged. Storytime about the scariest thing that I saw when I was sleeping over at my friend's house. When I was 14, me and my best friend were having a sleepover. We were staying up late on FaceTime with a boy and we were laughing and having fun. I kept hearing noises from the hallway the whole time, but I just blew it off as the AC or something. She ended up going to the bathroom, and around 4 in the morning, I was sitting in the room by myself and the lights were off. I felt breathing on my neck and I kept hearing whispers. This is when I got kind of freaked out, and when my friend came back in, she asked me what was wrong, and I told her that all night I felt like something was watching us, and I could hear someone whispering. We both went to a different room so that we could calm down because she thought it wouldn't be so freaky. After an hour of being in the other room, I started hearing chanting and footsteps outside of the door, and I started losing it. She asked me what was wrong because tears were flowing down my face, but I had no voice and I couldn't move. When I got the courage to speak, I asked, "Can you see it?" And she said, "See what?" And I told her that I saw a tall thing in a cloak walking around her room. We ran to the door, but that got its attention. The door handle wouldn't move, so the door wouldn't open, and the thing kept walking closer and closer with its hand out reaching for my face. Finally, the door opens and her mom comes running in asking why we were screaming. My friend hid behind her mom while I fell to the floor crying. I told her mom what I saw and she immediately checked the room. She told me there was nothing there, but when I turned to face her, it was standing right behind her on my friend's bed staring at the wall across the room. I started to not be able to breathe and begged her to take me home. She told us to go to bed and me and my friend were too scared to. Then all of a sudden the thing turns into smoke and goes into the ceiling. Me and my friend sat in the hallway all night until she got so tired that she went back to her bed. I sat on the floor of her room too scared to sleep, and eventually I woke up out of nowhere having no idea how I had fallen asleep. I went home and I went to bed and I had the most terrifying nightmare of that thing carrying me around while I was lifeless. I haven't been the same since. I constantly put protecting sigils in my room and on the doors and windows. I haven't seen that thing since, but I don't want to risk seeing it again. My friend moved in now, and another family lives in the house with a tall cloaked monster. I hope they don't have the same experience me and my friend had.
Am I the asshole for switching from non-dairy to dairy milk and inadvertently making my flatmate shit herself in an interview? I'm not lactose intolerant. I buy hazelnut milk because I like to have hazelnut syrup in my coffee, and adding hazelnut milk makes it even more nutty. My flatmate is severely lactose intolerant though, and has been drinking my milk ever since she moved in a few months ago. I don't have an issue sharing milk with her, but the issue is that she drinks so much of it all day, every day, that I'll get a single cup of coffee out of an entire carton. Sometimes she'll drink the entire carton before I even had a single drink. And then she never replaces it or refunds me or even acknowledges that it wasn't hers to drink. At some point, she stopped buying her own milk, and I was having to buy new milk daily. I asked her many times why she was drinking my milk and said that if she does, can she buy a new carton? And she would say sorry, that she just grabbed the first milk she saw and that she'd get me a new one, but never would. She started getting annoyed when I brought it up and would say I was being overdramatic when I mentioned how much it was costing me. Last week, I got sick of it and decided to go back to drinking dairy milk, thinking that as she's severely lactose intolerant, she would stop and buy her own milk. I thought wrong. The dairy milk is clearly labeled. It has a bright red label on it. It even says cow's milk, but she still helped herself. Unfortunately, the day she decided to drink the dairy milk was the day she had a new job interview. And the effects of the dairy-laced coffee she took with her kicked in as she was in the middle of it, and she didn't make it to the bathroom in time. She came home absolutely furious and laid into me about how I ruined her life, how this job was the opportunity she needed and I destroyed it for her, and that I did it deliberately because I was too uptight to share my milk. Here are the reasons why my flatmate thinks I am in the wrong. I knew she was lactose intolerant and so knew if she drank my milk she would get violently ill. She also said that sharing milk isn't a big deal and that I'm selfish. She thinks I was overreacting and being cruel just for the sake of it, and that I should have spoken to her about it instead of secretly changing milks. She has threatened to report me to the police, but I don't think she has a leg to stand on. Regardless, she's making our flat very uncomfortable to live in. She's taken my leftovers from the fridge and opened up my milk and left it to ruin, leaves all her mess everywhere for me to clean up, and has misplaced documents of mine. Am I the asshole?
Like, first reactions to that, like, somebody give her a titty to suck on because she's a child and needs milk. Like, god damn. Also, like,
It's bad.
if you take it to the police, like, this is nobody cares, but I'd be like, take me to the police.
Let's
like
go.
Put me in cuffs. Like, I don't know, this girl just sounds like a child. Gaslighting over the milk.
tender touch, drunk love, staying up, just talk to you. You stayed in touch, 2 continents, through all odds. Seems every night, yeah, all the time I'm calling out to you. Seems every time I take a drink, I'm reaching out for you. Seems I'm always late.
Am I the asshole for using our son as a designated driver? So this happened on Friday, but I'm still thinking about it. My son, 16, wanted to go to the movies, and my husband and I had dinner plans with another couple. The showing he wanted to see was at 8, and our dinner plans were at 8:30. So I told our son he could take my car if he dropped my husband and I off at the restaurant and picked us up after the movie was over. He agreed, and that was that. So we get dropped off at 7:45 and nursed a cocktail at the bar until it was time for dinner. Since we knew that we wouldn't be driving, we didn't worry about limiting our intake and just enjoyed our dinner. Our friend asked if I wanted to split a cab, so I explained our son was picking us up. I explained the situation, and my friend thought that was horrible. She said anything could happen to our son and we would be stuck at the restaurant drunk with no car to drive to his location to help him. I think she was being dramatic, but am I the asshole?